Apathy, desensitization, insensitivity. Insensitivity manifests itself as the person's inner world becoming discolored and dull, and not paying attention to the negativities going on around him. It is not possible for someone whose inner world has already been eroded to be aware of the negativities in the outer world. When a person becomes accustomed to something, it means that he remains indifferent to the very original and wonderful things he sees around him. Sin acclimation is when an individual slowly becomes desensitized to the notion of disobeying God and prioritizing their own convenience over His lordship. Apathy is a long-term and insidious disease. Since its course is slow, it is often not even noticed. Sin acclimation is a notion all Muslims are troubled by, though perhaps subconsciously. By every sin we commit we not only distance ourselves from the source of peace, blessings, and tranquility, but we also desensitize ourselves to disobeying God. Disobeying God isn't a big deal anymore, and one's personal demarcations of acceptable behavior are nudged away little by little as one sins without any cognitive guilt. These could be sins which we consider insignificant or sins we have come to commit habitually as a result of having given up attempting to resist them. In either case, there exists a form of cognitive rationalization that permits one to commit these sins. We must all be wary of the small sins we consider light and insignificant, for it is those small sins that pave the way towards much greater sins. If the causes of minor sins are not addressed and treated, major sins will follow them over time. Loss of spiritual depth through desensitization is actually a requirement of our nature and creation. Just as it is not in our power to be deluded, we cannot help ourselves from falling into ignorance. Especially those who have not progressed in faith, and have not been able to realize their heart and spiritual life may encounter this law of nature at any time. This situation is also expressed as a negative attitude in the 43rd verse of the Surah Onom. Why did they not humble themselves when we made them suffer? Instead, their hearts were hardened, and Satan made their misdeeds appealing to them. There are some situations where apathy and depersonalization can be noticed. The difference in thought and imagination may be reflected in a person's behavior and worship. Sensitivity to halal and haram may be lost. In order to take precautions against desensitization, it is very important to be unsure of our fate, to control ourselves, to question ourselves, and to preserve our spiritual depth. In the name of treating insensitivity, it is essential not to be separated from the collective consciousness, and not to stay away from sources of nutrition. A person who reads, thinks, sees every phase of the book of life in the form of new combinations, and adds new depths to his life of wisdom with those combinations will always live alive. A person who does not think, do not research, and does not reflect will not be able to escape from apathy and desensitization. The person who breaks sincerity falls from the top of the tower of sincerity and probably falls into a very deep pit. Because the more a person is blessed with divine blessings, the deeper the pit he will fall into. We should pray to Allah Almighty as it is written in the 8th verse of Al Imran Surah. Our Lord, do not let our hearts deviate after you have guided us. Grant us your mercy. You are indeed the giver of all bounties.